Well, welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you
for having us.
Today we're in Monte Cristo, one of my favorite places in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico. We've got Matt Ostrander from Mick's Exterminating. We've got Ron Hodgkins from Bel-O down here today.
Yeah.
Well,
Third trip this year, so
welcome back.
Well, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming down. It's a good opportunity to chat about your recent transactions. So let's get down to some business here. You guys both ran St. Louis area pest control businesses. And Ron, you've been in the space for, well, let's see here, you're 46. So you've been in the business for what, 20 years now? Or did I get that about right?
Pretty close, yeah. You're off by about 20 years, but you're pretty close.
And Matt, when did you get your start?
30 years ago, I was about 18. Yep, when I started.
So tell us about Mick's.
My parents started the business just a necessity. I'm one of 4 boys, so a little extra money. Dad needed to, found himself short on money every month, and had a friend that said he had some roaches or whatever bug he had, and Dad said, "Well, I'll just take care of that." And that's kind of how he started. He just one day went and got some supplies and started working. He needed, I think his story is he needed $30 a week or a month, or very small amount, just to just pay all the bills.
Okay.
And so it's 30 years later, we grew to a pretty decent sized little company for our area, and had a blast doing it.
Did you always work at the family firm?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you started, I guess, washing trucks when you were a kid type of
Drilling
situation?
holes, you know, you had a lot of termite work back then, and whatever in the weekends whatever work was left, I'd do.
Let's talk a little bit about the geography that you covered. So St. Louis, you've got St. Louis, Missouri, and then East St. Louis, Illinois, and from...
but you got, East St. Louis is just one little town. I mean, it used to be a big area, but it hasn't been for a lot of years. It's kind of run down. But so we covered some of St. Louis and most of southwestern Illinois. So 4 or 5 counties. When I first got started, I spent every day in East St. Louis, and we kind of grew out of that market.
But Ron, you took a very different path, I guess, than Matt did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk
Not
a little
family
bit,
business at all.
Let's talk a little bit about that. How did you get your start in the space?
I was living in Texas working for the power company, and came home to. My mom was getting a divorce, and I thought she needed my help. Turns out she didn't, but I came back anyway, and was looking for a job, and went to work for a over-the-road trucking company, and then found a job. A friend of mine told me about a pest control company that had no employees and was looking for one, and so I went over there, and that was in April of '84, and on January 1st of '85, the owner had an aneurysm. And so suddenly I'm in charge of a pest control company.
Okay.
Went to their house to quit because I thought, I can't do this. I don't know anything about what I'm doing. And they ran it out of their basement, and his wife was there, and his 2 little blonde girls come running around the corner. And I said, well, can't quit. Got to stick around. So I bought it in '88. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's when I got in. '84 is when I started.
So this was your first foray, but then you ultimately ended up selling that business.
I did.
Did you not?
I ran that. I bought it in '88, and we grew it pretty well. And then I sold it in 2005, I believe. And the buyers were better at buying than I was at selling. And so I ended up leaving there a few months later, and then went through the no-compete, did some negotiations and got out of that, and started a new company, started Bel-O, with a buddy of mine who we met. We spent a lot of time on charity boards together. That's where we met. And so he owned a heating and, well, he still owns a heating, cooling, plumbing, architectural roofing business. And so him and I started Bel-O, and most of the people that worked for me at the old company came over to the new one, and that's how we got started.
And that was tied in, if I remember correctly, when you started this with your partner, it was tied into a certain degree with his construction business, right?
Well, we rented space inside his building.
Okay.
He did, like I said, it's an HVAC company, plumbing,
Okay.
And we rented space. It's always been two separate corporations, but we ran it inside as we rented space.
And there was some overlap in name, was there not?
Right, same name. So his company was called Bel-O Sales and Service, and actually he spun his off. His dad and uncle owned a company called Bel-O, and they had two parts: sales and service and heating and cooling. Well, then they split, so now there's a Bel-O Heating and Cooling, which is run by my friend's cousin, and then he runs Bel-O Sales and Service, and then we were Bel-O Pest Solutions. And he's changing his name to Bel-O Man now to kind of make a make it different than the other guy.
So I met Matt through you, Ron. How did the two of you meet? You guys are competitors in the same market, so how'd that take place?
We were talking this earlier. It was Pest World, 20 plus years ago. Just happened to see him and probably had a few drinks together. And really, we haven't stopped hanging out and talking since. Got a pretty good friendship. We give each other a lot of grief, but got a good friendship.
I don't give him grief. He gives it to me. I just take it.
I'm starting to see that.
Yeah.
I'm a nice guy. I put up with it.
You guys, were you ever really direct competitors in that market?
Very little.
Yeah.
We both of our in St. Louis, like we didn't do a ton in downtown. He did. He didn't do a ton in our county, so we were never really competitors. A couple times I think we bid on a few things together, but
Yeah.
And you live in the Socialist Republic of Illinois, and you live in Missouri. Is that right?
That's true. That's very astute of you.
And why didn't you ever leave Illinois and head into the proper South and go into Missouri?
Truthfully, I know enough people in Illinois. I just
Yeah.
we live in, just to be clear, we're in southern Illinois. So there's Chicago and Illinois.
Yes.
You're from
I am.
from the greater Chicago area.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it's different.
you still pay the same taxes as people.
That is true. That is true.
There's a reason I left.
I bet.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just I live kind of in a rural area and know everybody, and everybody knows me, which sometimes is good, sometimes not. But it seemed to fit, and we did pretty well.
The two of you sold your businesses this year. What are you going to do now?
Well, I'm still working for PestCo, and enjoying it. I've gotten rid of a lot of the stress that wanted me to sell in the first place. But I don't know. Ultimately, I don't know. Maybe I'll stay here for a while. Maybe I'll try something else. I don't know. But as of right now, I'm still working, and my wife won't let me retire. I can't golf every day.
And what about you, Ron? You're doing a project for PestCo, helping them kind of manage this transition, correct?
Yeah, I got a consulting agreement for a year, and then they've hired me to do a little project to help the transition, to help general manager of my old branch to become a general manager. And they're talking about a lot of different other options for me. So I don't know. I'll do whatever. I'm old. I'm only 61, but I'm not ready to do nothing. I couldn't sit around. So I don't know. As long as I'm enjoying it, I'll keep doing it. But other than that, I don't really have any big plans.
No plans to start another business of some sort? No?
Not unless I can open up a cigar bar.
Yeah, down here in Puerto Rico.
That's
So today I don't really want to focus on the transaction as much as I want to focus on maybe some of the biggest lessons that you guys have learned running your businesses over the last 25, 30 years.
One thing I'm proud of, working for a family business and seeing a ton of people in family businesses fight, and usually doesn't end well. Usually it's some generation, the two or three generations tend to fight. With me and my parents, I can say we've never gotten a real fight over business. And I think there's one reason. None of us ever had any greed. We did our business. We knew what we needed to do. We knew we were going to do everything for the business, and never ever fought. And that's one thing that you don't see in family businesses. There is always tension.
And Matt, up until the day you sold, your mother was still involved in that business. How old is she?
She's 80. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She still, came in every once in a while, and but they moved to Arizona 5 years ago. They spent like 6-7 months there.
Okay.
But yeah, and we still talk business to the last day.
What about you, Ron?
I got in, obviously, like how I got in it is kind of an accident. And I kind of taught myself how to do it. And I had a book that I would read every time I knocked on a customer's door. So I think the lesson that stuck out for me was that this business is all about taking care of the customer and the employees, in my opinion. And so I always ran it that way. I always did what I thought was best for the people that hired us and the people that, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but that's what I actually did. And I think I'm pretty proud of the fact that I had people that worked for me that went on to do great things. I mean, people have gotten good careers and are still there.
Yep.
When I left my old company, everybody that was there decided to come along. So I thought that was a pretty good testament. Of course, for the first few years, I had to pay them, and we didn't have any work. but they were there, and they're still there.
Yeah.
So I think if there's one thing that I would like to be said is that I did it right.
Yeah.
So I tried. My son went into the remodeling business, and we were at a family function, and he was telling a story to somebody and said that he's running his business with customer service the way I taught him. So I thought, okay, I've left some kind of a mark somewhere then. So
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So when you talk about, people talk about customer service, but I mean, what does that really mean to you within your service organization? I mean, what did you do different than run of the mill?
Well, I can't say what was different because I just did it the way we did it, and I never really worried about how other people were doing it. But as far as I was concerned, there was, if the customer needed something done, we did it. I mean, when I started out, I would do all the little things that now people talk about and they train it, and we were always doing it. If you get to the job, the trash can's at the end of the street and it's empty, you bring it up. If we're at some person's house who maybe can't carry a box upstairs and they need something carried up, we did it. And then when it came to the pest control side, we would always double check. We would call them back and say, is everything okay? Is there anything else you need? And we were easy to get along with. If they needed something, they'd call us and we'd take care of it. Up until towards the end, every single customer had my cell number, which, sometimes my wife didn't like on a Saturday night. But I always took those calls. I never hid from the customers. If they needed something, I was there.
Who ran a better business in St. Louis Metro, Ron or Matt?
According to Franco, Matt did.
Yeah.
Ron did very, very well. I was really proud of what you did with your company for those 8 years.
We ran it like a family company.
Yeah.
And his was a family company. He likes to say I give him advice, but I'd call him for advice all the time.
Obviously right now, where there's a lot of talk about recession, there's clearly talk every 2 minutes about inflation. I mean, where do the two of you see this industry going here in the next couple of years?
I don't know why I'm so optimistic, but I'm just optimistic that it's gonna be all right.
Because you're down here in Puerto Rico drinking. Wait till you get back to the real world.
Exactly. This is my new world. Yeah. No, I really think it's gonna be okay. Like you said, there may be some cancellations, or there may be some changes, but I think they'll adapt. I think pest control's always stayed under the radar in a lot of recessions, and I hope it happens again.
I think two things. One, in our area of the country, we never get the highs that other parts of the country get as far as economic stuff.
Yep.
And we never get the lows. We go up and down, but we don't get the peaks and the valleys. And I think as far as the industry itself, the industry's had bumps, and it happens.
What sort of bumps did you guys see in 2008 and 2009?
2008 and 2009, we started in 2007. So.
Yeah, that's true.
No, that's
That's right.
And we grew all through that. I used to have a little button that I'd wear on my shirt when we were in that recession, said I refused to participate. And I just didn't worry about it. I've never really worried about what's happening outside. I just focused on what we did. And
What about the proliferation of door knockers in the St. Louis metro area? Have you seen a lot more of those in recent years?
We have. Yep. There's
come and gone.
they have gone, and then they're back again. They're making their second round. They've been noticed in St. Louis for sure. Yeah.
I think they've changed the industry a little bit.
How so?
Well, if you look at the PCT Top 100, there's a lot of them on there. And they were actually good for us.
I believe so too.
How so?
Because people would hire them And there are exceptions, but for the most part, they wouldn't stay with them. But they'd get used to having something done. And so they'd call us to come fix it. And we would get calls from customers, hey, you know, XYZ company was running through the neighborhood and knocking on doors, and they would just tell us, but they wouldn't hire them.
So you guys think that the door-to-door industry has expanded the market for pest control companies by?
I think they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. People got used to preventative pest control.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't do it before.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we cussed and screamed at, you know, the door knocking guys at the beginning, but now looking back, yeah, I think it helped.
To what extent do you think that market participation has somewhat tapped out, though, as far as the percentage of residential customers that use pest control?
I don't think it's slowed down yet. It may. You know, we talked about earlier about what the economy does if people have the money, but I don't. You know, they're still building houses and people are still moving in, and there's still going to be insects. I don't think the insects are participating in a recession. They're still doing their thing, so I don't see it going down. It may slow down a little bit. You may lose a little on the edges, but I think, like in 2008, you were talking before. I think we didn't see as big a problem in our area because our customers didn't lose their jobs.
Both of you guys were largely focused on the residential market. What are the bigger commercial players in the St. Louis market? Is it largely the Rentokils and Presto X's and Orkin type companies? Is that what it is?
And there's some privately owned local ones that do a lot of commercial.
Yeah.
But I was residential simply because I didn't really know how to do commercial, and it was a lot more to learn. So residential is a lot easier. And I hired a residential guy a commercial guy who's now gonna be the GM of the branch, and he was really good at it. So we expanded that part of our business a little. I guess he's been with me 6-7 years, 5 years, and he was good at it, but it wasn't something I was ever really good at.
You know, what sort of advice do you have for some of the younger guys? You know, if you look at yourself 25, 30 years ago, I mean, what sort of advice do guys have, like you, having gone through all of this, have to some of the younger generation trying to get started? A lot of guys out there, you know, small kids at home, 1 or 2 technicians working for them. As you know, this business grows inch by inch, right? It's tough to grow these businesses. Any sort of advice or any things you would have done differently?
People think when you get started, you got to be cheap so that people hire you.
Yep.
Well, the problem with that is that eventually you have to raise your rates, and then those same people think you're gouging them.
Yep.
And so I think people ought to just, if you do what you say you're going to do, and that's really, to me, what it boils down to, and they'll pay you. And if they don't pay you, then they're not your customer. I've always believed in the under promise, over deliver.
And I won't speak for you, but we've had conversations where we were too involved in day-to-day operations.
At some point, yeah.
You mean you individually?
Yeah.
And me
How
too.
so?
On the field, you know, it's always, you know, we got this problem, I'll take care of it. You know, hey, we got to do this, I'll take care of it. It was never, hey, let's find someone else to take care of it. I'll take care of it. And you do that and you find yourself at the end of the day and you're like, oh, I didn't really accomplish anything but put out 4 or 5 fires that I probably should have just paid somebody to do.
So how do you, I mean, I think this is an extremely common problem. I mean, I know I have this problem. So how do you,
Anybody in particular?
well, our Mexican friend.
Yeah.
So how do you learn to delegate that sort of stuff? I know as the owner, you're accountable for everything, right? At the end of the day, you're responsible for your business, and you take it very personally. I get that, but I mean, you know, for those younger owners out there, what sort of advice do you have about not doing everything? And
You have to do what I never did. Is you have to find the right person.
I mean, what kept you from doing that?
Probably just fear that so they're not going to do it as good as me. I can do it better. It's only going to take me a half an hour. This is only going to take me an hour. I'll do that tomorrow. It's just, you know, looking back, that was probably my biggest regret.
You know, Ron, in my business, inevitably 3 or 4 times a week, I'll get an email from the Mex saying, this is why a lot of our clients' companies stay small, because the owners button into our business.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if it came from Franco. That's not what it said.
No,
Suitable for camera.
it was very colorful.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Matt's, you know, don't tell him, but I agree with him. And for me, you know, I was it. I had to do it all. And there was a time when I knew every single customer that we had. I knew their dog's names. I mean, I could go there and say, hey, how's, you know, little Johnny doing in soccer? That kind of stuff. It's hard to let go of because like, oh, that's Mrs. Smith. I got to go take care of that one.
Yep.
And I was lousy at kind of letting go and going from being a operator to an owner. I think had I been able to make that transition, the company would have looked very different. I had plenty of people that I think probably could have done it in hindsight, but at the time, you know, they did their thing and I did my thing, and I spent too much time. If something didn't go 100% right, instead of taking them back to the job and saying, let's work this out, I just go take care of it. And I think that's the same thing you're talking about. You just go back out and do it because...
Is it the whole, if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself theory?
You know, I don't know if that's it, as it's easier. Like he said, you can go out and fix it in half an hour, or you can spend, you know, 3 days trying to teach somebody else how to fix it.
Right.
And that's our problem. Truthfully, it's not the people that work for us. He had good people working for him too. They could have done it. You just got to get out of the way. Like you said, you got to get out of the way. And I never was good at that.
And looking back, which is funny because in my new role as general manager of what will be Point Pest Control at some point, they're like, well, you got to train, you know, all the guys do this. I'm like, well, I do all that. He goes, train them. And I'm like, okay. And so the last few weeks I've been training them, and I'm like, well, this was pretty easy. You know, why didn't I do this before? You think it's going to be hard to train all your guys to do, you know, this sale or this problem solving or this. It's not. It's pretty easy. So.
And I think letting people make their mistakes. And I actually learned this from Mike Rottler years ago, that he let people make their mistakes, and then, okay, what are we going to do not to let that happen again? And I think I should have done more of that instead of jumping in and fixing it.
Ron, you've been through transitions and transactions over the years, but Matt, this is new for you. So now you guys are part of a private equity-backed pest control business. Every single transition is not without its challenges, no doubt. Like, I don't think that I've ever done a transaction in the last 20 years, and there's been, I don't know, hundreds of them, where there hasn't been challenges. How has it been taking your team, inserting it into this larger Point platform in the Midwest? I mean, what sort of issues have you guys faced?
We haven't faced too many issues as of yet. There hasn't been a ton of changes. I think everyone is aware of the changes that will be made, and there'll be a ton of positives.
Let's talk about some positives. I mean, what do you see as a positive? You've taken Mick's Exterminating. Now it's part of a larger platform in the Midwest. I mean, what's some of the upside there?
I think benefits is huge. You know, I think there's going to be some additional time off, you know, vacation days. There's going to be a little more freedom. Guys are able to take their vehicles home. It's just, you know, a little more freedom. Everyone in the company, they're all still there, and none of them quit. And, you know, I think they're looking forward to it. I really do.
What about you, Ron?
Our transition started a little quicker than his has. You know, with him still there kind of running the show and doing everything. It hasn't been a lot of changes yet. Ours started changing from day one. At first, I think everybody was a little shocked, a little nervous.
Actually, let's start with that. What was that like?
I'm not going to name names, but there was a lot of tears. And some of those people had been with me for, you know, well over 20 years. It was a little tough. I mean, there were people who were pulling me off to the side and, you know, you didn't need to do this. We could have changed. I'm like, no, it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But right now we're still driving the same trucks. We're still wearing the same shirts. The only real difference is the payroll and the benefits package. That's about it.
Let me ask the two of you. I mean, do you legitimately believe that there's more opportunity for your people as part of the larger business?
100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
100%.
How so?
Working for a very small company does have its advantages, but there's a limit to those advantages where it's time to get paid and get better benefits, and we've seen these guys, probably you too, where we've hired them as 21-year-olds, and some of them are in their 30s, and children, and it's crazy to see that we're supporting families now.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we're
It's unbelievable. The two of you guys are supporting families,
Yes.
right?
Maybe not. Is this Franco?
It is Franco all of a sudden. Maybe we ought to let
channeling
him
my
sit
inner
down
Frank.
in that chair.
So, but you guys are. I mean, your businesses are from a size perspective the standard industry size businesses. You're not massive companies, and
We're upper middle class.
you guys are upper. Okay, so you guys are the upper middle class of pest control, right?
For Southern Illinois.
For Southern
For
Illinois.
Southern Illinois, exactly.
I'm like a monster in Southern
And
Illinois.
I have been to Southern Illinois, and I think a lot of folks out there have not. So, but
Why would they?
they would not. So you guys are one of the rare folks in the industry thus far that have done a private equity deal. Now, Matt, I know you've never done a deal with an Orkin or a Rentokil or Terminix, for example. But I mean, what's it been like dealing with, when I think about PestCo, right? Brand new into this space. You've got a private equity firm that knows absolutely nothing about pest control. So they get up to speed quickly. They develop a thesis. We want to be in the pest control space. They set up PestCo. They hire Jay Keating. They buy Fat Jared's business. They buy all sorts of different companies. But you guys are part of a private equity machine now. I mean, how does that feel? And is it different than what you would have imagined under like a Terminix or an Orkin or a Rentokil? Better, worse?
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but only thing I've learned so far is that there are a lot of conference calls that can be solved by simple emails.
Oh, you're going to get in trouble for that
I'm
one.
going to get in trouble for that, but it's true.
But every single deal I do, whether it's the Anti-CMAX or Rentokil, it doesn't matter. Rollins, everyone always talks about guys like you. They sell to the business. Mike Rogers used to always say, like, for the love of God, I've sold a company and now I'm having a meeting to just plan for another meeting, right? So literally, that's what we do. So you're doing a lot of that, right? That's the corporate world.
I understand, but it's an adjustment. That's for sure. It's a.
But truthfully, I think it's an adjustment for Jared and his team as well.
Absolutely.
And it, I don't know if they would agree, but I think it's got to be. It's got to be overwhelming at some point. There's got to be some point during the day when they're like, okay, now who are we dealing with this time? Because it's growing quick for them.
Right.
I
agree.
I think as far as whether it was,
Let's just not have meetings just to say we have meetings. Let's have an
I'm not
agenda.
in control of that.
But that's kind of the ownership in us.
put in
we're
a good
always,
word for you.
We're always, rolling and trying to get through everything. But that's so far, the only real change that I've had.
Yeah.
But I think, the Thompson Street guys, Jeff and his guys, they've been good to me. They're not really involved. They pretty much have turned it over to Jay and Jared. And in fact, I haven't talked to Jay since I met him down here in February or whatever it was.
That's right. You met Jay Keating down here for dinner.
Yeah. And I haven't talked to him since. But I think it's fine. I do think that the opportunity for the people that are there, which I'm not going to say what everybody says. Oh, everybody says that, because I've heard too many of your podcasts where everybody says that. But truthfully, I do think that there's great opportunity for the people that still work there. I think it's fantastic for them. I think that they, like Matt was saying, when you're in a small company, I disagree with him a little bit. I do think there's huge benefits working for a small company. There's things that a small company can do for an individual that large companies just can't, because it would. You'd never get anything done.
Yep.
You're going to have some stuff that is closer to the way it was and some stuff that isn't. And some you're going to like, and that's what I told all the people who work for me. Some of the changes you guys are going to love, some of it you're not. But as long as you're still taking care of the customer, you'll be fine.
Matt, what's the dumbest thing Ron's done in business?
Oh, good Lord.
Well, that's easy.
How much film do you have?
Do not know all the details, but I believe selling the company the first time was not a very smart decision.
Really? So you sold the company, it was C and
C&D.
D.
C and D. Why did you sell that company?
Did you just really say that on camera?
What did you say? I didn't hear what you
You
said.
you can delete that out, can't you?
What did he say?
No, I'm not going to tell you what he said. That's just horrible.
Doesn't everybody call it that?
No more. That's enough. He's had enough.
Wow.
No, we're
I thought that was pretty.
since Matt's not smoking cigars, we'll.
Yeah, it was called C&D.
C&D.
The original owners were Clarence and Dorothy.
That's what I said. Clarence and.
That's not what you said.
But
But
we're gonna have to consult the record after the recording and determine what he
can
actually
you play
said
that
I
back for
couldn't
us?
hear. We'll play
Do you
it
have a
back
court
then.
reporter?
Yes. So, Matt, you're saying the issue was selling that business was an issue. What was
Yeah.
that dumb mistake?
Well, outside looking in, it didn't look like it worked out so well for him.
I think it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in business, period.
Why?
I sold for what I thought was opportunity. I got to be careful because I made the decision, so it's nobody's fault but mine.
100% your fault.
And people tell me all the time, well, aren't you mad? Well, no. How can I be mad at a decision I made? I think that I trusted someone because I trusted that person's brother.
Yeah.
And it just didn't turn out well for me or for my customers or for my employees. It just didn't turn out well. But that being said, you know what? It's you move on. It was a learning experience. You know, somebody once told me that, and I love this line. You know, what I went through was worth $1 million, the education I got. But you couldn't pay me $1 million to go through it again.
Yeah.
It was horrible. It ended up really bad. But hey, look at it this way. I wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't gone through that.
But why did you then, you're 60, 61?
61.
So you're young. 10 years ago, I would have called you old, but now the older I get, I have to call you young.
Perspective changes. doesn't it?
Exactly. It certainly does. So, why was the time right for you now?
Well, first of all, for all the viewers, yes, I really am. I know I look 35, but I am 61. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Why was the time right now?
No, the time was right now because, I told you my son had decided to do something different. Well, the way my wife and I found out that he was going to do something different is that I had hired a company to train him how to be a owner of a business and to teach him everything he needed to know outside of me because I love my son and I think he likes me a little bit and we're fine.
Yep.
But no matter what I said, he either didn't listen or he heard just the opposite.
That's
one of those things.
Yep.
And so we called him over and told him, hey, we've hired this company. You're gonna work with them. I'm not involved. I'm paying the bill, whatever. And he told us, well, I was wanting to talk to you anyway because I want to go do something different.
Okay.
I'm like, all right then.
Yeah.
And so then we started looking for. In fact, I asked you about, of all these people that are selling, how do I find somebody to kind of start training to take this thing over? And the people that I found, either I couldn't afford or I didn't think I could afford. My perspective on kind of that stuff changed a little bit now that I'm seeing how the more I'm around you, the more I realize there's more stuff that I could have done. I'm not saying I made a mistake because I love what I did, but it got to where it was time to go because it was just the right time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it and I assume it happens in a lot of stuff. When it's time, it's time. And it just seemed like it all fell together.
But do you guys think about, like, the two of you? A lot of times when we do transactions, a lot of it really comes down to almost like burnout and Groundhog's Day, right? It's not, clearly it's a financial transaction, but at the end of the day, it sometimes doesn't seem to be motivated by that. It's just like, shit, like I've been doing the same thing for a long time. I just want to do something different. Did any of that come up?
That's not what it was for me. For me, it was, company can only grow as far as its leader. And I think I had gotten to where I didn't know what else to do. I had gotten to the point where this is it. I don't know what else to do.
Right.
And that's what it was for me.
Mine was exactly how you described. Just
Well, you're young.
I was starting to lose interest, and then I kind of started seeing other parts of the business that were, feeding off my energy of losing interest. And
Yep.
I was like, okay, either need to change or we need to move on, and just made a decision to completely.
Well, but see, I don't think that's much different. I knew I needed change, but I didn't see you're 20 years younger than me, so well, maybe 10. But it was
20 sounded nice.
20 sounded nice. Yeah. Your wife wishes. But no, I thought I don't think so. You think you had burnout?
Absolutely.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't have burnout. I didn't know what to do next, and so I didn't know how to make it grow. And these of the people that you had me talk to, Paul, I really thought that these guys could. I believe there was better opportunity, and it's going to be fun to watch something that I built from zero grow. Right? It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I learned a lot about my business from the process. In fact, I learned so much.
What did you learn about your business from the sell side process? Let's talk about that.
I learned what I should be paying attention to.
Like what?
I remember I was on one of the calls and I was asked my retention rate. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know the percentage. Mm-hmm. I knew we didn't lose customers, but I didn't know the percentage.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting thing to find out. We went back and started looking. I'm like, damn, we keep people. And when they ask about the length of our employees, I had to provide that information. I'm like, man, these people have been here a long time.
That was eye-opening. Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a lot about the positive sides. Now, I did learn some negative sides.
What kind of negatives did you learn?
In 2015, I started making all kinds of changes. I hired a bookkeeping company that actually did a really good job. It was one of the smarter things I did, and I hired a marketing company that made a massive difference in the calls that were coming in. And I started looking at the numbers a little different. And I think had I done that years ago, it would have played right into what, if I'd had done it 5-10 years earlier, it would have played into what we were talking about earlier about hiring the right people. Because I was much more focused on everything that you do, how does it affect what you need? And so it made a difference. I mean, so I think I learned a lot about my business during the transaction. I really did. And I think if I'd have learned it not going through the transaction, there may not have been a transaction. If I'd have
That's
known.
why we didn't tell you about it in advance.
I understand. Yeah, you got your job to do. I understand. We've been friends a long time, Paul. Apparently not real good friends, but
good enough.
Yeah. I think we learned that, at the time you thought you had to do every kind of service imaginable.
Yep.
And when we were, going through all the numbers and seeing the revenue and some of the profit on some of these things, like, why are we doing this? Let's stick with what we're good at. We should have not done this, and this, and just stick with our residential pest control, which we loved, we're good at. I learned that for sure.
I actually started doing that a few years before the transaction. I started, and because of the numbers that I was getting from the accounting service, I'm like, well, man, why am I wasting my time?
And those are the areas of your business that you probably caused you the most stress, right?
Well, it was the most disruptive.
Right.
And truthfully, I should have known that because I remember Mike telling me years ago about how, if you take work that interrupts your regular scheduled reoccurring revenue, you shouldn't take it.
Yep.
And it never made sense because I was, man, you do a good wildlife job and wildlife's still a great business, but not in Illinois. Or a pre-treat. We'll use a pre-treat. You can do a pre-treat and you get we had 2 of them 2 years in a row that were $17,000 a piece, which isn't a lot of money, but it's a pretty good hit. And the profit margins are high on them, but they call you and say, you got to be here, tomorrow morning. Now you got to change your whole day. And I think that's what I learned is that you get rid of the stuff that isn't exactly what makes a reoccurring revenue business strong, and doing one-time stuff isn't it.
So you guys are saying that having gone through the transaction, having dealt with a variety of different acquirers, all the different questions, going through this whole process, one of the things that you learned, which you probably knew already, but it just really doesn't crystallize, I don't think, until it's pretty much common sense. I think there's not a person listening to this in the industry that doesn't realize that doing recurring revenue is what you should be focused on. But it's not until you go through a process when acquirers say, why the hell are you doing that? And you're like, shit, I don't know.
No, you're right. I think that's exactly right. It's the stuff that you knew, but you didn't do
No one ever
anything
called you
with.
out on it. So
Right, exactly.
No one's seeing it, right? Like
Right.
you're doing it in quiet.
And when you are focused on, and I think actually Jared made a comment one time about how decisions that he in his video,
Yep. Which
decisions.
I think you literally were
I
at
was
my
there, watched the
apartment when
recording
he
of
was
it. It was pretty interesting to
recording it,
watch. Yeah. Well, watching him put makeup on Jared is the best. I wish I had a film of that so I could just anytime I had a problem with Jared, I'd just send him that thing and say, here you go.
So many lost opportunities in my
I'm
life. That
telling
would have been
you.
a good one.
That would have been a good one.
So you guys are down here in Puerto Rico for a couple days. Matt, this is your first time down here, and Ron, of course, you've been down. This is your third trip this year. And on top of that, you've been to the Dominican Republic just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, three times I've been to Dominican and 3 times I've been here.
Yeah. So you guys you're going to go to Culebra tomorrow. You're not going to do that. You're not going to go to the island. You're going to stick around here in Puerto Rico.
We are. Lay around and just kind of, I don't know, maybe go in the old town but
I figured we ought to take him into Old San Juan, and I mean I've been there. Now it won't be as good because Franco was my tour guide, and I think does Franco know every single person that lives in San Juan?
Yes, he does. And Ron, when you came down last time, you took a solo. The first time you were down here, at least that I saw you down here, you were with Rhonda.
Right, that was the first time.
Right in the middle of the deal, if I remember correctly, Rhonda almost booted you out of the house because you were stress case, and she said, go down to Puerto Rico. You sat actually in the same chair.
Yes.
The chair you're sitting in right now. We
Yes.
smoked a cigar here.
Yes, good times.
It was a good time. It was that was a great trip you had down here.
Oh,
super relaxing.
it was exactly what I needed when I needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I came here and had some drinks and some cigars.
Yeah.
Yeah, great place. This is
It's my favorite place in Old San Juan.
I like it.
yeah, that's awesome.
Maybe you'll come back someday.
I'm never coming back here.
Never.
No. Matt doesn't travel.
No.
I love Puerto Rico.
No, it's beautiful. I want to see more of it tomorrow.
Well, listen, we love having you guys down in Puerto Rico. Thanks for coming down. Ron, it's great to come back to Monte Cristo with you.
Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. It'll be exciting dinner tonight. We have Tony Strado coming in, former owner of Triple S, who will be dining with us tonight, and he's a load of fun. And then I think you guys will get an opportunity on Wednesday for a short period of time to meet Ken Fox from Presto. And you've talked to Ken.
Yeah, I have.
So Ken owned Presto, who he sold to PestCo.
He was early, right?
He was their first transaction.
Yeah.
The first deal that PestCo did. We did that one.
And he's here tomorrow, you said?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
He may fly in tomorrow night. I think that's when he flies in. So you guys will get an opportunity to have a couple of drinks with him on Wednesday.
Seems to be a theme when you're in Puerto Rico. A couple of drinks.
A couple of drinks.
drinks.
Turn into a couple of more drinks.
Speaking
So,
of which,
well, it's a wrap for today, and I think we're going to enjoy a few more drinks.
Yes, we are.
thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
the opportunity.
Absolutely, guys.